Welcome to the second session. In part one, we covered about half of our exam objectives. We also did an overview of the MCSE, so I won't repeat everything, only things that I've forgotten the first time around. And that is just to remind you that with any MCSE, and this is the Modern Solutions Expert, there is on the IT Pro side a requirement for recertification, or call it renewal if you will, upgrades every 3 years. This will appear on your transcript as I think it even is called an expiration date or something. But we'll see how that works because they only instituted this about 3 years ago. So I have a server infrastructure MCSE note on my transcript for October 31st. So on Halloween, I have to upgrade that. Similarly, when you pass your MCSE here, as with any other, the clock starts ticking, and there will be some sort of upgrade exam appear later that you would have to pass within a 3-year period. And typically, if I were you, I'd put that off to near the end of the 3 years, because that will start again for another 3-year period. What else to say about the MCSE expirations? I don't think I forgot anything else.
Does it work like CompTIA's does, where you can take an upgraded course and it function 3 years again? Or do you have to take a specific one for?
These are not, although the courses do map to the exams, there is no linkage between course and exam. So you do not have to take any course if you don't want to.
I mean, for the expiration.
With the expiration, you must take a different upgrade exam. It's at least what I've seen so far. There's a single upgrade exam that I have to take by the end of October for that server infrastructure. And then I'm good for another 3 years. And I don't think anyone, maybe very few people, or if anyone, have done that, because this is the time where everything started 3 years ago with the, we'll call them legacy MCSEs. These are modern MCSEs. They reuse the same 4 letters, but this stands for Solutions Expert, not Systems Engineer. Okay, and so with the developer, it's a 2-year window, so they're even a little more volatile. If you have an MCSD, modern MCSD, you have to upgrade every 2 years. So definitely part of the picture. Okay, so I'm Mark Wheatley with Infront Consulting Group, and I'll just remind you that parts 1 and 2 have no overlap, and I'll go directly to, I forgot which number I was on. No, it's like 40, 47 or something. Did we do that question? Yes. We finished that one, yeah. We were on part 2. So that was pretty close. What was that? 51. Okay, so parts 2, just remind us, this is really the same as you saw before. It is best, if you can, I mean, it's best to take this exam this week, both of them if you want to, one or both, so that you set yourself a bar for 30 days because, well, about 30 days, slightly less, because until May 31st, you have a second shot, which means not only do you pay half price here as you would outside, you pay $75 versus $150 in U.S. currency, but even if you're not from the U.S., this applies to you for your second shot, and you pay in your, you don't pay again anything in your local currency. You have the right to take that second shot. But it has to be by May 31st. So this sets you up motivationally to make it. And if you don't take that this week, this will become another thing that you put into the bucket, because MS Ignite is full of constant activity of other things going on. So highly encourage you to register for this. Do it. Do it sometime this week. And pay attention to what was on the exam. You may take notes after you finished, and you may go back and study like crazy, and I have some super resources for you to work with. As well as, do not let me go without somehow distributing these 2 books. I have them both on Kindle, by the way, the 695 and 696, so I can show you what I mean about how useful they are. All right, so this is, just as before, if you're new, what we do is we take the exam objectives from the skills being measured, or simply skills measured under every single Microsoft exam, not only these. So if I were to go through and show you what I'm talking about, that would be something like this. So if you go find any, this is 696, I could actually just change that 6 to a 5 there, and it would do the other one, but I think I already have that on my screen. So again, you would be able to schedule directly here. You could walk right in and schedule immediately. There is no wait time, as there used to be with the prior exam provider. So you actually can walk in and say, I want to take this now. Chances are they have room. I don't want to sound too much like I'm selling cars here or something. Oh, there's the man. He could tell us if there's still plenty of room for exam registrations. If they, super. So this is Dave Lewis, and he's sitting at the bench over there. If not, he, someone else will be able to register you for that. But the authoritative source for what's on the exam always is these skills measured, and that's what we base the entire presentation on. It's been true for 20 years. I have never found anything to deviate very far from this. And usually if I think that it has, and I go back after the exam that I've done really poorly on, I realize I didn't pay that close attention to these objectives. So this is focused, and we'll drill down into some examples to make you think. And this is really the authoritative source. Not only does it show you how to pass the exam, but it shows you what's important to Microsoft. This is all connected with what is important to extensive studies done in the workplace for what desktop support technicians do in terms of deployment and management of applications. So super, super important stuff. So we went over that in the first session. Mostly, we are going to continue on with the second session. And near the end, just before we give away our books, our prizes that are autographed by Brian for the 695 one, we will cover MVA links and also sessions at Ignite that reinforce this activity closely. And again, where else do you look? Probably nowhere, because this is brand new. There just are not books or references out there other than MS Press, Microsoft Virtual Academy, and Microsoft Official Courses. That's, as an MCT, that's where I picked up on this, because when you teach the courses, the exam objectives that you see here also appear if people in the class are interested in certification. They appear there, and you can see almost all of the course will work on these exams. So we're into another set of tasks. You should be able to plan and implement user state migration. We're up to version 5 of the user state migration tool. This started out in the XP days, or possibly even before. I forget if it was around in Windows 2000 workstation timeframe. It is the fundamental way of transferring a user's profile. Okay, so very important stuff, and how you do this will affect migration. If a user is a worker, they do not want to end up without their expected material on the new operating system, or they'll be very upset and blame you and everyone else. So migration of user state. Here's a question relating to that. Data and preferences from Windows 7 to 8.1. These are all correct things. None of those are implausible distractors. Probably D. That's kind of a giveaway, right? Because the same, you usually shouldn't put the same answer text in the answer that you had in the question. But, heck, this is just to prepare you. Well, is Windows Easy Transfer valid? Yes. Yeah. It's a wizard-driven piece that sits on top of the user state migration tool. But it is not typically used in business and for any sort of bulk migrations. It's used when you buy a new PC at home and you want to transfer your old PC to your new. So that's very easy and works very well. How about files and settings transfer? FAST. Did I just make that one up? No, that's real. FAST is what they used to call wet. Oh dear, I'm not going to go very far with joking on that. But FAST is what it was called in the XP days. So files and settings transfer is the same wizardized version of user state migration tool a couple versions back. So know that because it might be a part of some migration scenario. The Windows Automation Installation Kit is what is now called, in this current version, the Windows Automated Deployment Toolkit, ADK. Right? So the correct answer is user state migration tool, of course, and that's kind of stated in the objective. So definitely know where each tool fits and when you would use them, what versions they might be, or generally know the more modern ones. They don't ask you any detailed questions on legacy things, but we are migrating XP to 8.1, so there may be some intermediate steps that would involve an older tool. It's not entirely off the roadmap, and so these are not just throwaway type answers. You should know something about them. As usual, this is even a slightly smaller group than before, so feel free to interact. And as before, you were very good. I didn't have to shut anyone up who just wanted to hear himself talk about how he failed the last exam because of all these exact things that were on it. That would make me very upset. So definitely comment on any technical part that you would add to any of this, and that helps fill in some of the context and really is good for us. Okay? Answer files. What tool do you create answer files with? We kind of hit that one in the first session. Yeah, SIM. It's sometimes called Windows SIM, System Image Manager, or it also appears as described as a four-letter acronym, WSIM. Okay, where does it come from? Where do you get it? Yeah, you download it from the ADK for 8.1, and so that's how you get it. It's not a separate download. It may have used to have been a long time ago. These tools have all evolved from sort of resource kit type tools into subsets. You can still get it separately? Right. Well, it'll appear in Config Manager and MDT because those are going to be prerequisite pieces. So, okay, let's go. There are a lot of options to user state migration tool, but they're essentially three parts, three executables that drive everything with huge numbers of parameters on the command lines. All right, automated hands-free installation of 8.1. Notice I'm not saying zero touch, but we could call it that. And you're given a retail DVD with all the source files. So it'll have an install.wim and a boot.wim. What would you use? Beat? Which tool will be the most helpful? In fact, which tool would allow you to do a deployment with just that tool?
Wait, is it for setting up or actually doing the deployment?
For deploying it. So you've got the WIM files. Which tool? Yeah, which tool alone would allow you to do that? And this did surprise me a bit, but the most helpful would be the System Image Manager to do an answer file. Windows Deployment Services by itself is not going to limit the dialogue. But you would still have to use the Windows Systems Image Manager to make an answer file. So the key is we're trying to call out naming that answer file auto install.xml. Blah, blah, blah.
Although the best answer, which is not there, would have been the ADK.
The ADK would give you the complete toolkit. Yeah. That would give you everything you need.
But that's like having a toolbox and knowing not which tool.
Yeah, the ADK really is the container for everything. And so it's almost like, well, did you bring your suitcase with you? Okay, so software updates using WSUS Windows Server Update Services. Make sure you are clear that WSUS is either standalone or integrated with Configuration Manager or Virtual Machine Manager for that matter, but we are going to assume that you're familiar with how you set up a software update point in Config Manager, which essentially takes over all control of WSUS. Okay, so update management is extremely important, not only with Config Manager. Oh, okay, well, okay. Microsoft Intune also does updates, and that's on the exam, but I think I have that as a separate slide. All right, the tasks you'll have to do is synchronize your WSUS server or your software update point, if you've got it integrated with Config Manager, with Microsoft's update servers. You have lots of reports in Config Manager, Config Manager, Config Manager, Config Manager, Config Manager, all Config Manager, right? GPO settings, group policy, to support Windows update being rerouted instead of going to Microsoft over the internet, going to your software update point or your WSUS server. So that is just also going to be a part of this. Question: what do you need to configure a software update point, a SUP? S-U-P. This might be tricky. Well, what is everything you need? Well, A would be not needed under certain circumstances. This might be a good discussion item here. Shall we go to the answers and then do a discussion?
If A is part of the answer, it's wrong because
You don't use
calls, you don't use it, but it does call the console for you. So if the console's not installed, yeah.
It calls the DLLs, but if the MSC part of the console is removed, which is a good thing to do, best practice, so you won't do it by accident. I have caused extreme damage in my past by modifying WSUS and then Config Manager because I wanted to be fast. I actually hosed my data back. So you do need the console to be installed if your software update point is not on the site server. So if the software update point is on another server, which it usually is, then your site server with the console, how is the console going to, how is your Config Manager console, how is your site server going to manage WSUS? It doesn't have the DLLs that it needs to call. So you have to install the WSUS console onto the site server so that code is available to be integrated. And then never use the WSUS console again. I mean, you can just to read only, but don't do what I did. Oh, it's funny.
You don't have to, I still run cleanup on mine.
You still run,
Cleanup on my WSUS console.
what do you mean cleanup?
Clean up the library.
Yeah, there's PowerShell scripts to clean up old. Yeah, you need to.
You can't just never touch it again, or it'll take up every available bit of space.
I don't think that's perfect. I don't think that's true, but I don't think it's going to be covered in the test.
No, definitely not.
Definitely
just mean
for
that-
operational, yes.
It's really not set it and forget it.
The key takeaway, though, is you cannot control and have a software update point on a server that is not your site server if you don't have the WSUS console installed there. Then you can delete the MSC file and never look at it again, but the DLL files are absolutely necessary to be called. A management point in your infrastructure is absolutely necessary everywhere. That's the number one client-facing role of all in Config Manager. I'm pretty fair. I can be pretty fair in saying that. Any updates are deployed through the Config Manager infrastructure, not we're talking WSUS integrated as a software update point now, so we must have a distribution point. Software updates are independent of Windows Deployment Services, which is not used to deploy them at all. You never need the deployment toolkit for any software updates, and you do not need the Intune connector if you are deploying through a software update point. Sure.
So to configure it, you don't actually, like, the MP is DP, so you can put that stuff update on the CAS, which doesn't have any computer DP. So, reading that question, I said, okay, configure it, all I need is a console, because otherwise I can't do anything. But I don't think I need an MP or a DP to actually just put them on and actually make it work.
Oh, somewhere in your infrastructure, you do need an MP.
I understand that MP and DP, what they do in the package you do need, but it's not asking you to manage anything. It's asking you to configure software update.
Yeah, to configure a software update. What prerequisite? Well, what prerequisites, what has to be there if you want to have a software update point?
Configure a software update point. I'm just asking for, I understand
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, because you don't necessarily have to have the MP or the DP installed first, but you have to have it before you can use it.
Yeah, before you can use it. So, well, we mean by prerequisites here, we're trying to get you to see how these roles, how these server roles in Configuration Manager are dependencies. That's essentially the takeaway there. And so configure software update management in Config Manager is the goal we're looking at. Yeah, you can, there are a lot of different ways you can do anything. But there are definitely pieces that are required in dependencies. We're looking at dependencies,
I
really.
think his point was you're not configuring with the management point or the distribution point. You're doing your configuration in the console. Is that right?
No. Oh, no. You want to do a software update point, but this is a confusing issue. You should never use the console directly to manage once you're integrated with Config Manager. That supersedes it. But you have to install the console, not for the console, but for the DLLs that come with it that are called so that Config Manager can take over it. And that's often confusing.
I think when you install Config Manager, it takes care of that on the back end for you. Like, you don't have to set WSUS up first. It's part of the install process.
Well, if you want to install more than one WSUS server on a remote site server somewhere else, that's what we're talking about here. Yeah. Okay. Software update point in Config Manager, what would you do to configure it? Yeah. Is that only true?
It's the longest.
Because that's the longest piece of text. Careful, guys. Careful. Make sure you know that not only is there a WDS util tool for Windows Deployment Services, there is a WSUS util tool. That is available for automation and has been available for a long time, but I did not know about it until recently either. So take a look, and I even put this in because I thought, no way, what is this? And so I went and found it and ran it.
We used it much in 2008, but in 2012, if you're installing the roles, you have to do that command through a post install.
If you wish to have it SSL protected. So notice it says, the question, I should have read that more carefully, is what do you do to secure a software update point, not to install? I maybe should be reading this more directly. And to secure it, that's really the only way you can get in there and do it. It's a little trick. You should know that. And this little thing is what I did to validate it. Of course, the /question mark will give you the other options, and then you can look it up and read it. So how about planning and implementing software updates? This is a big one, and some of the answers may be very surprising to you because they include tools that you might have thought are long gone. So SCUP, System Center Updates Publisher. Anyone use that? Good. And you know that it's still 2011. System Center Updates Publisher 2011, but it's still in scope and still being used. All right, a question. You want to deploy third-party software updates in your enterprise? You need no interaction. So how do you essentially package these up and use them? What tool, more than one, could be used here? Kind of gave it away with my introduction, right? B and D. Let's see. In your enterprise, if we're using an enterprise, yeah, exactly. You probably don't want to do D, which is the home style. Go over the internet one by one, and who knows who has what after a few months. Shall we discuss here? So Microsoft Intune does allow third-party packaging, and you can treat it as an update. This involves the Microsoft Azure storage, and we don't tend to call it a cloud distribution point, but it's a similar structure if you're using Intune standalone. So you can do this. Okay. Now, System Center Updates Publisher, you can read about, and I have no idea. I kind of doubt that they'll ever update this, but what this does is allow a vendor to create a mechanism to have their software updates, like Adobe uses this, to have their updates look like Microsoft updates so they can be deployed the same way. You can use SCUP, and I've had some people succeed and be very happy with using that for everything. So instead of deploying application software, they package everything as if it were an update and let the update service take care of it. You can be the judge. It's not really a recommended best practice, but hey, there are a lot of creative people out there. Okay, the takeaway, make sure you can plan, because just as we've heard from our CEO, Satya Nadella, this is a world where Microsoft does not want to, or at least the statement is, we don't want to go and knock everyone off the mountain and just be the only one standing there. That's silly. We want to interoperate. Always we were interoperating, but we didn't want to it used to be we wanted to interoperate so we could suck the juices out of the enemy and leave them a dried hulk and then take over what was left. No way. We want to fully embrace the third party. Almost everything. So definitely know this. It's important. Image management. This is pretty low level, meaning deep technical. And make sure you're very comfortable with the deployment and imaging and service management type tool. And this is a command line tool. DISM has replaced ImageX. However, ImageX still exists. So be very careful if you're being asked a question that has both DISM and ImageX as answers. Many of the things you can do with each one, but that word deprecate comes up again. Make sure you know ImageX is deprecated. DISM now has PowerShell also, commandlets. Its command line componentry always was like PowerShell. Someone, Jeffrey Snover, must have said, write DISM command line arguments in verb-singular noun format. That's the way we're going to do the whole world. Okay? Question. What if you have, we didn't really cover this, hopefully you guys, you know about Windows PE, pre-installation environment. I usually call it primitive environment, but that's not Microsoft, it's me. Replacement for DOS. You want a command line tool and use Notepad for your word processor? Use Windows PE, free from the ADK. So definitely a part, no Windows PE. You have to start from a boot image that starts with Windows pre-installation environment. You can create your own. What do we need in there? And these are all, they're all pretty valid except C. I didn't want to be real mean to you, so I put an extra X on there. There's no such thing as image XX, but there is an image X that would be really hard for me to deny you that as being correct. But I want to make it clear that image X may appear in your scenarios, but it's likely because it's deprecated officially and has been for a while, it's very unlikely that that would be a recommended solution.
I would say if you see DISM and ImageX,
Yep.
If you're down to those two, you're probably gonna.
If you have to choose one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the real world, you can actually use 7 to just open it as an archive, and you can drag and drop files in. That's it.
Yep. It works. But anyway, just know that this is a Microsoft exam. We don't want to really confuse you about. We don't want to confuse you about tools that we do not intend to support. And I would be quite sure I would probably bet a small amount of money that ImageX will not be here in the next ADK, whatever it's called, whatever it will be called, because that really came out with Vista to make images to deploy Vista over XP. Okay. Now, who was mentioning keys? Is KMS on the exam? Someone said in the first session. Are they still here? Was that you? Oh, someone. Oh, well, you definitely have to know about activation methods, even though many of us don't really like those. And in some cases, if you're a partner, I'm having trouble getting a KMS host key, and I'm asking my partner manager and not really getting anywhere. You actually have to have the paid enterprise license to do this for real. So you got to you can use if you have a really good friend, you can use up that KMS host key up to 6 times. So if they know they're not going to use it, they might give it to you for a lab. But like I'm saying, this is an area that is actively tested on and can be a little bit gnawing on you in the exams. All right. The new grace period, or actually, is it new? Before you have to activate. A, 90 days for 8.1 and 120 days for server 2012 R2, and then you have to activate. Oh, my poor friends. Be careful. You have 0 grace period with Windows 8.1 and Server 2012 R2. So if you do not have a product key, you cannot install it. Their answer is to provide, in the case of Workstation, a non-upgradable eval version. It appears to be the same eval version in 2012 R2, but if you use the DISM/online/get current edition, DISM/online, it's starting here. DISM Online set edition : in my case server data center because the evaluation version was data center, product key : and your actual product key /accept EULA will pass that through. And if you do that little one-liner, you can change a server's evaluation version, which would normally die in 180 days? Yeah, they do a countdown. And you can see right at the right-hand corner of the screen, you are using an eval version. You can change the SKU, the stock keeping unit, essentially. You cannot do that with 8.1. I haven't even heard of a hacking method, but officially Microsoft says you have to install a new version. So all that stuff about rearming and things, be careful. Look at 8.1, and this is what has changed from even 8.0. Yeah. Now the other ones are actually true. We heard of Windows Genuine Advantage and activation, and it used to be they were separate, and now they're in effect merged. And we were just describing how you do that. How you do that in D. Take your SLMGR and have no parameters, and look at all the possibilities of command line switches here to manage your licensing service. Okay, definitely a good one. How about this? This is a totally new item, and with new items that are deemed to be the way of the future, these are going to get preference on your exam as well. So Active Directory-based activation is new to 8.1 and 2012 R2. New to 2012 and 8. It's being picked up on the exams now, but it's new to 2012. Uh-oh, I gave away letter B, right? Because I said how if you really want to test this. So there's a lot of confusion here. Let me just go to the next page and point out every one of these is a true statement. This can be kind of edgy here. So to do Active Directory-based activation, you do need to have a KMS host key. So if you will, it's kind of a superset of the key management server methodology. It will still behave as KMS does. You can use our volume management tools. Once we are in Active Directory-based activation, we have Active Directory objects. That is how we really make this much more simple after we get this done. And you can use all of those tools to configure those objects in Active Directory. So give that a little study and go through and try if you can do that in your production environment. Take a peek or look. And if you have a KMS host key to work with, that's great. It is true that a Server 2012 KMS host key will work for both, but Microsoft also will, in effect, sell a Windows 8 host key that can only be used in Active Directory-based activation for Windows 8. I agree, I don't like licensing stuff either. It's hard to be right, but this is where it is on the exam, and this is where you'll either be hurt a few points or you can get ahead a few points. Volume activation, and that's where Volume Activation Management Tool, VAMPed, I don't know how you would say that really, comes from. So, volume or enterprise activation. Which of these makes any sense? I'm sure you pick a couple of them already, right? Yeah, KMS. Now, the main two kinds historically have been multiple activation key and key management service. And I mean, your single retail key doesn't really apply that much in business, but as this.
Well, it wouldn't because the question says volume activation.
Yeah.
So you're doing things in bulk.
Yeah, not retail.
You wouldn't want to log in on every computer. You'd probably be PowerShell.
So I'm trying to help you out here. Every single one of these is valid. Proxy activation usually means, I didn't want to give it away, but proxy activation is usually a proxy MAC. So if you have a scenario where the computers in question cannot contact the internet, but one in the group is sort of a gateway to the internet, has internet connectivity, that can be your proxy MAC activation. It can talk to the others on the network, and that's what they mean by proxy multiple activation key.
I would have just thought that's part of the KMS. When you say KMS, you have to set up a proxy, or you don't. But that's
Yeah, proxied MAC.
but I'm splitting hairs. The point is,
Part of the picture, yeah.
yes. But you could have a question saying, what do you do if you have a scenario where these computers need to register to KMS, and they're on only one of them can leave the network. It's a closed network.
Yeah,
So then that
that's a workplace scenario, and this is exactly the kind of thing you see on this exam in a case study question. If we have any time at the end, I can just show you where you should definitely look if you've not taken exams with case study questions. They can be unnerving, and I probably shouldn't say this, but if you have your choice of exam testing centers, choose this one because the monitors are big. At one testing center I went to, I guess anti-cheating, they had little hoods over, and then the kind where you look through your desktop through a smoky glass into the monitor. That is not suitable for reading huge amounts of data and going back and forth. So Big monitors are good for these kinds of exams. That actually it might make a difference to you. A lot of reading material. Okay, assess the computing environment. And these are pretty basic, so they are, I guess if you were going to do them in conceptual order of approaching how you would do an infrastructure, you would probably start with MAP. Anyone use MAP? Yeah, it's not really widely used, but Microsoft...
They use it a lot for licensing.
Well, they sure use it at Microsoft, too, because the last Microsoft Management Summit, they were showing a remote connection into Redmond, where for 3 weeks it had been going through studying what's out there and hardware, software inventory to some extent, and they're planning an upgrade. I forget what to what it was at the time I saw this, but pretty important stuff. It's also important to note that you don't have to duplicate the map functionality if you have Config Manager. And you can integrate the two. So we've integrated several things with Config Manager so far. You should definitely try to experiment with that in a lab if you don't use that actively in your environment. Okay? Let's see what they're going to ask us about MAP. How can you discover who's out there? And remember, this is, if you read the first thing about MAP, agentless. So we're going to spend some time going over the network, making calls. Careful, WMI can manage, but can we use it to discover?
You can do WMI calls. I think the map, when you have to know it, the map does do inventory and it does make WMI calls.
It does make WMI calls, but do you use that for discovery method? You actually have discovery methods enumerated in the map. So it's a good idea for you to install that and take it out and look at it, because you will be able to use network or Active Directory to start off in discovery. This is more primitive than Config Manager alone. So integrating it, you probably already guess, hey, if I want to use this seriously, I'll integrate it. But, do it in the lab and install this separately. And download and use the map and then integrate it. Speaking of integration, this solution-based MCSE, Solution Expert. This means a lot of integration. And probably the major integration of everywhere is MDT with Config Manager. This used to be kind of shunned by Microsoft, thought of as being not, premier quality, just use Config Manager for everything. And now the way people use this is clearly not that way. So the truth is coming out and is reflected on the exam. The best way to do it, and some of you who are doing this probably will agree, is to use the best of both worlds and to create task sequences which are more flexible in the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, and then import them into and with the integration that allows you to use that in your Config Manager deployment. Used to be frowned on, kind of, or ignored or pushed away, and it always worked really well. And so now the truth comes out and is reflected in the test. So this is a good thing. All right. Where do you store these things when you integrate it with MDT, Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, with Config Manager? Boot image, that is. If you're used to Config Manager, that's where it would go. But we're talking about MDT, a custom boot. Deployment share is where it often is put, but in the wizard, when they ask you where you want to put it, whack, whack, server name, whack, whack, share name. So make sure that you give, that it's a UNC path. But really, honestly, most people put it as a subset of the deployment share folder, which is a share. They put the UNC path, but it does not have to be. And that made me think when I actually was integrating it with somebody else, and they wanted it stored somewhere separate from the deployment share. And it works. You just put a UNC path in. What you do, you install the MDT, and from the... Oh, maybe I'll give away another question. How do you integrate is coming up next. Oh, phew. I should just learn to shut up sometimes. So how is the MDT integrated with Config Manager? Where do you kick this off? What do you do? Where's the wizard and what do you call it? From Config Manager, MDT integration in Config Manager, A.
Oh, no, sorry.
Run the wizard, B. Yeah.
You could actually, I remember it's basically, when you install MDT, there's an icon.
From MDT, so you're now on to C, right?
I'm wondering, yeah, but I don't know if the icon is the MDT integration wizard, because it's just
Yeah, they're going to ask you, and then remember from a previous question, once you kick this off in the MDT, what are you going to be asked next? What do you have to know?
site code and the server name.
Exactly. So your config manager site code, config manager server name. Boom. All right. It's now, how much time do we have left? Oh, we have some time left. So this is because I forgot. I intended to give one of these books away to the previous session, but since you guys are the more dedicated group, that means there'll be two here. This is Brian's book, the 695. You may access either of these books for study material and then come around Thursday afternoon and see if they can be raffled off or something. But they are around the corner from here in our study hall room. Now, I'd like to say you can also study for this exam, these two exams, with the Measure Up software that we are supporting for other exams, but these are two new. So there is no Measure Up exam supported by Microsoft for these two new exams. So you definitely, though, go to make up for that fact, go in there and grab these books and read them, and then sort of be the first ones on Thursday. Yeah, there's a lobby place where you can test, where you can register for the exam and talk to Microsoft Learning people, and there's some sofas there. And then there is a kind of library-like room. The doors are kept shut for peace and quiet, but there's a big classroom full of machines that have all the Measure Up software and internet access. So if you want to look up things that this has jogged your memory on, for instance. And all these slides will be posted really of all sessions as well. Near the end of the conference, I think, or they'll be on your MyIgnite site. Okay? So these are MS Press books, and to let you know that I use these to prepare with. Hey, that's not supposed to happen.
That's a different exam.
No, this is the right exam, but it just did something.
Figuring out projector issues.
Oh, a different exam, how to do projector. It just kind of set the mode on me there. But here it is. This is just Kindle version. So this is available in not only paper, but that's Brian's book. He was sitting quietly over there in the first session. Now he's madly making up his slides to present on, forgot which exam, the server ones, the 412 or something, I believe. Brian Swittergold. So this is good stuff. There is a book for also the 696 as well, and you'll find that book in the library. I don't have those to give away. Okay, so super resource, and while we're on to resources, boom. These will proceed in a similar way with the objectives, and then lots of sample questions and lots of scenario-based approach. So the scenario-based with the reading, I urge you to pay close attention to that where they describe a scenario and then have some sample questions. because that comes as close to the online format as possible. I think we have enough time. Would you like to, have you done these scenario questions before? Let's see, I can pick any one of these I want, I suppose. So if you go down to the bottom of these, any of these should show
So you're not the only one who looks at that and tries to understand what stuff is hidden.
well, I wonder if it's exam general. Let's just see if I go right to the home page and can find it. But if you just look at Microsoft.com/learning and then go to certifications and exams, it's a more general place. I'm onto it. Exam list, overview, why get certified. It's one of those two. I may have to go back and find it again. Oh, come on. So let's do certification exam, policies, and FAQ. So policies and FAQ, I believe, is where it is. Frequently asked questions, exam specifics, recertification. Oh, come on. All right, if I look for exam.
There was something about format further down. Exam question types, is that what you're looking
Question types, yeah.
at? Go down a little bit further.
Yeah.
Second line, second question.
Oh, what testing in formats? Oh, and here's a link to it. So here's what I'm looking for. So what I'm looking for is exam formats and question types. Now, you will have two kinds. The easiest one is a build list, but it is a build list and reorder. Whoops, it comes over here, and they give you in the build list something that pertains to this particular exam. Oh, I guess they change it. No. So the build list will mean build a list of the correct tasks and make sure they're in the correct sequential order, which you can then change and move around with. So this is a question type that you should be aware of that you'll see. And they're blabbing at us throughout this. So you can go look at this on your own. But the most important one is case studies. This is absolutely critical. So you're going to have multiple tabs, similar but not identical to those, that say, here's what's there. Here's some network stuff. Here is some server infrastructure stuff. Here are technical requirements. Here are maybe legal requirements. Here are maybe business requirements. Here are some problem statements or desired outcomes. And then make sure you know that you can click the question button. And that will bring you to the question you're working on. When you toggle the questions, you can go through each one of these. So this is the dominant format. Please practice this and know that if you read all of these before you try to answer any one question, you will be spending a lot of time. The one thing they're not showing you here is they will say this scenario, they will say this scenario has 9 questions. Jot down on your scratch paper 9, because when the scenarios change, you can't go back to the previous ones and you may forget how many numbers there are. So then you'll have multiple choice questions, and it may say you have 19 multiple choice questions. Well, if you don't remember how many scenario questions you've had, you won't know if those 19 will be the end of your exam. I can tell you, you get hit with a whammy, and my case is with another scenario question near the end, just as you think you're done. So keep track of your numbers and you're happy. So these are just housekeeping techniques. We've kind of interrupted this program for a special bulletin, but you also have Microsoft official training classes. The numbers are no accident, 695, 696. There is a correspondence to these exams that there was not before. In fact, we used to say up until about 4 or 5 years ago just the opposite. We deliberately designed the course not to map to the exam. Well, now we deliberately designed the course to map to the exam. The numbers are clear. We're intentional about it, but we never make the claim that taking the course will get you through the exam. You still must, especially in an MCSE type of exam, work with this on your own, have extra experience, and go outside of the range. So minimally, for either one of these exams, you should be familiar with the other exam's content a bit. And of course, where you're using a System Center product, you should be familiar with server management, network architecture, Active Directory always, and related things like that. When you're using Intune, Intune has a lot in common with Office 365 and Azure. So some of those concepts are going to help you in those three areas. You're essentially doing the same cloud storage from the same places at Microsoft. Okay, so these are both 5-day classes. Now, Microsoft Virtual Academy is, I don't know why people aren't using this more, but what you can do here, and this is my number one. Oh, I've got a link to it. Oh, no, that's not my, okay. The one that was just done last week, I don't have here. But what you'll do is have everything except labs. And in the latest one that was published last week, they have labs available through June online for free. So put me out of business as a Microsoft certified trainer and be self-motivated and do this. And it's a huge, huge gain for you. You will not be having to make your boss angry by carving out a private network area for a lab for yourself. And it's extremely useful. So application virtualization, one. Let me just knock some of these out and point that out. Okay, good. I had to put another background down there to make that visible. This one, the Windows Deployment Jumpstart, is actually the superset of a huge part of the 795 exam. Very, very, very good. So that's the MDT integration. It's extremely powerful. Line of business application deployment. So I won't click on each one. Have you had Windows to Go sessions here? Because that's not listed in the objectives. It's not very nice for me to say this, but I think you should know it, even though it's not listed in the objectives. Do you know about Windows to Go? It's gotten better, so don't judge it by its first release.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Played with it a couple weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah. Well, visit the Iron Key people because they have Windows to Go pieces. I hope they give some away. Oh, maybe I'll go say.
If you want to see
Yeah.
where Windows to Go is really going, look at IoT conferences. The Internet of Things.
Yeah.
It's lightweight on a micro SD.
There's
Windows embedded, basically sending stuff up to the internet, so you have these real-time monitoring scenarios. You should be seeing some of that covered in the keynotes.
Yeah. Now, they did cover some of that in the keynotes. Really, it's really, some people call it Windows on a stick, but it's gotten a lot better than it used to be, and you can use more devices for it now. And the encrypted devices by certain vendors are absolutely superb, and you're right, pricey. Cool. So I'm not going to click through on every one of these. So these MVA sessions, definitely MicrosoftVirtualAcademy.com is where you start. Do you want me to click through on any one other? I still have a few minutes left. Where did my Pro Plus? Something's not quite right here. What slide was I just on? I'm looking for my slide count number. Just a minute here. No, that is right. Okay. You should know about Pro Plus deployment and the Office deployment tool as well. Maybe I didn't have time to stick some questions on there. But the ODT, or Office Deployment Tool, is connected with deploying Office Pro Plus, Office 365, Office 2013 Pro Plus, which is different from Office 2013 Professional, sometimes called Plus as well. All right.
What's in this room next?
Good question. I'm not sure. Hang out and see if you get kicked out.
There's an exchange class.
You said that the one gentleman's doing a Windows. Where's he? You know where he's at?
I think his is tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay, I'm gonna.
Yeah, Brian's. Okay. So some of these I clicked through as well, but that one was on deployment, so the 695. And I separated this out here because you do have to focus to some extent on one exam rather than the other. Please pick the exam that maps most to what you do mostly, what you feel familiar with most of the time. So are you primarily doing OS deployment? Are you using the MDT? Are you using Config Manager in the deployment area? Or are you working with device management? If you have any sort of third-party devices like Android and IIS, and we don't talk about Enterprise Mobility Suite because that's quite new even for this exam, but Enterprise Mobility Suite is definitely in scope concept-wise for what we're doing on these exams and in this certification. Okay, so I can't tell you how valuable this is, and the price is free. Just you will have to spend some time on this. Now this is the one that I don't have a link for because it hasn't been put up on demand, but if you will look for that, it should happen any time. And I've been told they may treat that one differently because it's the first one that has hands-on virtual labs. They are hosted by the same people who are hosting the virtual labs here, the Learn On Demand systems, and you are able to take your self-paced MVA, Microsoft Virtual Academy, and knock off and create your own 30-day trial subscription with Intune and work with it there. That's a huge opportunity for people who don't have Intune because it is tested on. Okay, Ignite sessions here that most correlate with these exams. I don't have links for these. You will probably have to take this and look up the exact seminar number. But you might guess, right? 695. Deploying Windows 8.1 images on Surface Pro 3. And we don't really ask about Surface Pro 3 that much. I don't think it might be on the exam. I forgot. But that means Windows 8.1. Bare metal deployment, hands-on lab you can do anytime. Microsoft Intune, hands-on lab, really useful. Also instructor-led lab. I like to do the instructor-led lab, and if I wish to pursue it more, go in and do the hands-on lab. Okay, provision apps with Config Manager is also application deployment, applications, packages, and programs, but mostly applications. That's a big part of Exam 696. How to do that, how to configure dependencies, and how to link them together, how to treat the whole application lifecycle management with Config Manager. They are approaching that with applications and deployment types and retirements and supersedence, things like that. All right, not mentioned in the exams are work folders. However, I think you should know something about work folders, and in a bring your own device scenario, you can use work folders if the devices are not Microsoft servers. Okay, so definitely look these up, and I think this is being Tuesday. You probably have time for all of these. I don't think, I have to check, but I don't think these have already run for the last time. This is Tuesday at noon. You still got time. Endpoint protection, we didn't ask too many sample questions about it because it's pretty straightforward. Endpoint protection, just know for your own reasons that it's the same engine used for Defender, Forefront, Endpoint Security, Config Manager, Endpoint Protection, and Microsoft Intune Endpoint Protection. If you look at the banner, the interface is all the same except for the title bar, and that'll be the brand of however you started this. So it's the same underlying tasks are running, the same types of scans, the same virus signature, well, not exactly the same plumbing, depending on whether you're on the internet or directly or not. Okay, so it is quite easy to work through, but endpoint protection is definitely in scope. Okay, one shop stop here, Microsoft.com/learning, and then look for exam question types format. That's where I was struggling a bit. And definitely if you've not taken exams that have case studies, the build and reorder. I think they may just be called build slides, but they technically are build and reorder. And the third type is multiple choice, multiple answer. Multiple choice best answer, sorry. Multiple choice best answer, which means you should never just pick the first one and move on. Make sure you choose the best answer, not just one that could be correct. So those are a little harder than multiple choice single answer. Multiple choice best answer of the following. We covered the Microsoft Virtual Academy and the app. You don't have to remember this URL. Just go to the Windows Store, type Microsoft Training and Certification, and you get a complete roadmap that is really, if you were to print a big PDF, it would be quite large. But the one at the very top, because it's the newest, is Devices and Apps. And I guess they took that out of my deck, but I had a slide there that said, hey, this is these be the first to pass these two new exams. If you look at exam and certification, 695 and 696 are the actually most current ones. So in the few minutes left, how do we distribute these? Wow, I didn't think about that. Who wants the 795 the most, or 695 the most? You want to stand up, you guys? Stand up if you want it the most, and you're not going to use the Kindle. Oh, you're kidding. You made this terribly easy for me.
I say we go by the honesty policy there.
Well, look, I've got one copy each, and they are autographed, so you get them.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. I don't know what I would have done if every one of you stood up. I'd have to do a rock, scissors, paper game or something until the last one standing got it. So listen, if you have any other questions, there's a few minutes left. Anything goes, I guess, regarding how you can best succeed at this. My goal here has been to best make sure that you're prepared to do this and that you don't do my mistake, and that is register for it, take it. You've got everything going for you. You've got half price, and you've got a second shot built in until May 31st. So don't overstudy and expect like, oh gosh, if I fail it, my mother will punish me and never let me in the door or something. You know, fail it to know what's on it. Go in with a open mind. Don't give yourself too much anxiety, and you know what to study. You focus better, and then you're motivated, and you've got a time window that's perfect. The end of May will give you the perfect time to go back and try again. And the rule is, if you fail it once, you have to wait 24 hours before you take it again. And if you fail it twice, including your second shot, you wait 2 weeks. So you'd probably be so mad at the end of May, you want to wait 2 weeks to study it all anyway. And then from thereafter, it's a 2-week cooling off period each time. So that gives you time to study and make your employer pay for it. Oh, I'm still on tape here, so I better not say that. But see what you can do. Well, best of luck, and thanks so much for attending the sessions, and have a great rest of the conference. Hey, cool.